Tether is launching its own stablecoin. Wait a second. Doesn't Tether already have a stablecoin? That's right. Tether already has a stablecoin, and they're launching a made for America, super compliant stablecoin called USAT. Welcome to the Bitcoin Season 2 Breakdown. This is where I break down interesting new topics in the extended universe of Bitcoin. Tether wants to maintain its dominant status as the number one stablecoin. It has to evolve. As you can see, Tether has a market cap of $173 billion. That's far above the next largest one, which is USDC, of $73 billion. Why does Tether have to evolve? Well, we had the Genius Act this fall. Well, we had the Genius Act pass this spring. So Tether wants to maintain its dominant status as the number one stablecoin. It has to evolve. As you can see, Tether, the third largest cryptocurrency, probably not even in this category anymore, total market capitalization of $173 billion, and has significant volume. In fact, Tether usually does more volume than Bitcoin does in a day. So Tether has to evolve because of the Genius Act. The Genius Act, which went into effect this summer, means that Tether, which is currently a foreign stablecoin issuer, I believe out of Singapore, does not meet the Genius Act requirements to issue stablecoins in the United States. So Tether created USAT, which will, quote, move Tether into the compliance window with the U.S.'s new stablecoin law. What is USAT? So USAT is a dollar-pegged stablecoin fully backed by USD and USD assets like bonds, treasuries, highly liquid investments. Tether asked Anchorage Digital Bank to issue the stablecoin, while Cantor Fitzgerald will custody the stablecoin's collateral and related funds. Both Anchorage and Cantor satisfy the Genius Act's requirements for stablecoins to work with domestic, federally chartered financial partners for issuance and custody. USAT company will have its headquarters in Charlotte, North Carolina, in contrast to Tether, which primarily operates out of Singapore and possibly in the future El Salvador. You may remember that Tether recently hired Bo Hines, who was the previous White House Crypto Council executive director. Pretty clear why they did now, as Tether focuses on launching USAT. Let's dig into the Genius Act just a little bit more. So, the Genius Act laid out a few clear guidelines for what it takes to be a licensed stablecoin issuer in the United States. The big ones are permitted payment stablecoin issuers. So these are essentially companies that are legally allowed to issue stablecoins in the US. It may seem like just semantics thing, but without this distinction, a company cannot issue stablecoins in the US, list their coins on US exchanges, or otherwise have financial institutions custody them. There are now reserve requirements to be a permitted payment stablecoin issuer. You have to have a certain number of audits. You have to have certain ratio of demand deposits, treasury bills, approved money market funds. Reserves must be on a one-to-one basis, and the stablecoin issuer cannot rehypothecate funds. Now, while this may not have been the issue with Tether previously, USDT, now these are enforced via U.S. regulatory agencies. Another key one, they cannot issue interest to stablecoin holders. This is to appease the bankers, as Colin says. Foreign issuer exemptions. So, generally the US doesn't want foreign issued stablecoins, but the Genius Act carves out exemptions, particularly if the foreign stablecoin issuer is subject to regulation and supervision by a foreign payment stablecoin regulator that the Secretary of the Treasury determines is comparable. And and that the company registers with the U.S. Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, and that stablecoins reserves are held in a U.S. financial institution and it's not under U.S. sanctions. So what does this mean? The author of our newsletter, which I highly recommend you follow both on Twitter and our newsletter, says, well, as far as I can tell, USAT doesn't mean Tether is discarding USDT. What I do know is that USAT was a do or die moment for one of crypto's most powerful companies, and honestly, it was probably never in question once the Genius Act was passed. In fact, the legislation may have given Tether the poke it needed to solidify its presence in the US with a regulated domiciled entity. So some of the items described in the Genius Act do pretty clearly allow and provide a path for Tether to issue this stablecoin in the US, given that Tether historically has been a foreign stablecoin issuer. As Colin says, pour one out for USDC, which spent the last 7 years building with US compliance as a cornerstone from day one, only to have the king, that's Tether, announce an invasion with the US government's pending blessing. You know, at least USDC and Circle has been favorable from an investor standpoint. It's public and Tether isn't. But how long will that last? If you enjoyed this, go to subscribe to our newsletter at newsletter.blockspacemedia.com